Alrighty. Welcome back to Is It Wrong to Try to Become Girls in a Dungeon? Anime Review, episode number 51. We're here reviewing episode 67 of the series, which is also the 7th episode of season 5 of the show. We have only 8 more episodes to go. You're like, wow, 8 left? Wow. Yes. Unlike the last episodes, I reviewed like Sunday or like Wednesday at the latest. Today was like Saturday, which is it's getting better. I kind of wish I did this yesterday because I had time to, but I just didn't have much time. Sally. So this episode covers basically, in a way, it covers like it finished up adapting the rest. Now, last episode stopped at around this point. This is like a quarter of the chapter for chapter 2 and to 3. And this episode pretty much covered the rest of chapter 3. The rest of chapter 3 from page 148. Excuse me, that from page 148 and went straight to page 208. Which, if you're curious, that is like the rest of chapter 3 and the entirety of chapter 4, which is those left behind. And it stops just before the start of chapter 5. Chapter 5 is the longest chapter in book 17 of the series. It is 118 pages. And I have this really good feeling that this book we finished up in the next 2 episodes, and then pretty much the rest of the season will cover book 18. That's my guess. Either it's going to be next week's episode, which is going to call Belle Cornell, or it's going to be the following episode, but who knows. The episode starts up with Hestia talking to Orpheus, where he's like, oh, you can help me because you're not affected. Like, he is, but the altar, people outside of the altar is actually affected by it. Which means Fels, the character who first appeared in season 3 of the show, he is affected. He can't exactly help the subject that basically he would want to, but he can't. Because he's basically running the guild. And Fel basically is told, have Hermes gather firewood for basically for the winter. And he points out that that's Ganesh's job. Ganesh's guild job. But Ganesh's busy. So give it to Hermes. Okay. And that's Hestia's only contribution to the whole episode, this one scene. And if you're curious, like, what happens next? Well, there's a lot of this episode focused on Freya. And then right after that, and then we see Freya reading Elena's diary of Belle since he first showed up in Aurora. And Hammer basically informs her about Sire, where basically about Belle basically asking about her, and of course, well, him informing her that because of course she does ask like, why are you asking about her now? Why did you tell me that now? Because Belle's asking about her, and your response basically was, and what was your response? To look at the reins, and she's like, yeah, that's fine. And, of course, mentioned about his education. Of course, he wanted to do it because he see potential. And they do training for quite a while. And then we see Van basically trying to prove Belle like he hates him. And then we see Belle when he talks to Hestia a bit. Then talks to Freya for a bit. And then it's like the scene is not really concluded. And then later on, we see Ryu waking up in another town that's not Aurora. In case you're curious, though, have they announced before when they went to a place outside of Aurora? In the main series, this has only happened once, at the end of season 2 of the show. Prior to that, the only time I ever did this was actually in the sole movie that this series ever released. I think it was called Arrow of Aurora, I believe it was. It was Israel Heroes Dungeon, basically Aurora. That was the only time, of course, that was basically chock full of references to season 1 of the show. But That was the only time I could think of when they went outside of Aurora, because a lot of the series is set in this one town. Very rarely they go outside afterwards. The only time I did it in the main series when Hestia had basically rushed out because Bel's the way he was raised by his grandfather Zeus. And yes, his grandfather is named after the Greek god of the head of the Greek god pantheon. Yeah. Now here's the thing. No one knows his father was Zeus. Nobody knows this at all. Only Bel. Bel does not know anything. I think he's heard of Zeus, but he did not know that Zeus actually is his grandfather. He does not know this at all. Yeah, not much is known a lot about Bel, aside from the fact that he's a big fan of hero stories. That's really the main series. I have heard basically other stuff related to him, but that's related supplementary material. So, basically, Andromeda basically informs her basically outside of town the fact that Freya's taken over Aurora thanks to her charm, and they had to flee. So, they proceed to go back. Rio goes off on her own, and Andromeda basically kind of falls asleep in her room, and then she basically watches the distance. Of course, you have them basically in a way break back into Aurora. And before this, we see Anya, I think her name is, the one who's the cat girl from The Beloved Mistress, where she basically wakes up where she's very mopey what happened. And then she asks about Sire, and her coworkers are like, who is Sire? They have no idea who she is. And then she asks Mamma Mia about her, and she's like, oh yeah, I know who she is. She's an idiot. And according to her, only she and only herself and I remember who she is because of Freya. And then, of course, she just runs up because she's very distraught. And then she's found by her brother, Ortyr. No, it's not Ortyr. It's basically her brother. And then it's like, oh, you talk to Freya, and then Freya just transforms into Sire. Basically revealing to her that Sire is Freya and Freya is Sire. She doesn't believe it, and she's very much mad. And of course, Ryu tries, and of course, basically she's like stopped by her own brother. Then Ryu comes in, overhears this, and Sire, well, basically Freya admits that yeah, a lot of stuff she told her, and basically were true, but she basically wasn't a big fan of being a goddess. She basically was bored by it, so she had to play with the children. That's kind of what they've heard. Yeah, the goddess always referred to the regular people as their children. It's a thing gods do, so I'm not going to blame the series for that at all. It's like this also in other mythologies, so the writer of the series, Fujio Omori, he probably took inspiration from actual other mythologies for this. So that's the reason why that people part of the familiar refer to as her children. So, and then she gets knocked in the gut. Ryu comes in and basically overhears everything. And basically, of course, she also suggests they could basically share Bel. Ryu is not particularly happy with this at all. And then she is knocked out, but first they treat her as a charm on her, but because of how really close she is with her, she decides to break her own charm on her, and proceeds to tell basically Ira's brother to take her to the family dungeon, keep her away from Bel, and she also says, your sister basically is all yours. And he tells her sister, stay out of business, and we'll leave you alone. And Estrella basically just notices this, and she has to go undercover. Meanwhile, though, Bel visits basically has one time says some nice stuff to her, and then he mentions Sire. Then she proceeds to grab his cheek, to be a little upset, and then of course she leaves. And then we see Raph, what appears to be Horn, coming out of look coming out of Freya's room, and you have Hammer saying he wishes to continue being her loyal servant, and that's how the episode ends. Yeah, that line basically him saying being loyal servant. That was actually the ending. That was actually the last line said in Chapter 4. And that's the episode in a nutshell. rereading the stuff basically that they adapt for this episode, it is surprising how much basically they kept in. They adapted 60 pages. And I don't feel anything is rushed. There's no major cuts here per se. I'd say it's some altered dialogue. I think in the case of Mamma Mia's dialogue, her dialogue gets a bit altered in the book. It's different from the book. But aside from that, it's a pretty faithful adaptation what's adapted here. Now I have this theory that either next episode or the following episode will be the finished adaptation of this book. And then we're going to move on to book 18. Which, that book is lengthy. And you thought the book 14 was long. Yeah. Book 18 is longer. But I think about 20 pages, I think it is. Yeah, it's like one of our long books in the series. And if in case you're curious though, how much does it have to be adapted for this book? In case you're curious, though, it's that much. It's 140 pages left to be adapted. Here's the thing. Do I think that the adaptation for this next episode? Like I said, I don't think so. I think we might be getting one more episode of this. So, that's what I think. But, that's how I feel about it. Yep. There will not be Comic Corner next. Actually, I'm just going straight to I'm going to go straight to do Case Closed. And I wonder why basically one of the episodes was delayed last week. So I'm going to try to get it done tonight. I might be able to get one. Probably the episode should have come out last week. I'll probably watch that tonight. And looks like tomorrow is going to have a lot of anime because I couldn't get a lot of this stuff done tonight. Sadly. Yep. But yeah, that's particularly a particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and do the dislike button. So, Case goes next. Bye.